both groups, and I'd like to thank my note taker too for being very helpful and taking some good notes. We had excellent discussion. I think we covered all the bullet points in the JSA, most of which were covered by the MADT stuff as well. However, there was one thing, in fact, turned out to be our top priority for action, which was not specifically mentioned in either of those two things, and that was congestion into and through Marlborough, where we quite saw that the idea of the roads not being too full, etc., really meant that you were talking about the A4s and other roads outside Marlborough and going through. But we're talking, what came up most in our discussion was this congestion factor within Marlborough. Sometimes you need to get into Marlborough, sometimes you need to go through Marlborough. And we concentrated on the fact that of the 17,000-18,000 statistic of the Marlborough area community, half of those live in Marlborough, and the other half are trying to get into Marlborough. It is their hub, and they've got to come in here to hold in the wall for some money, or a doctor's appointment or something like that. They've got to come in, so you have a problem. So congestion, we think, should be separated out as a separate point. And it is particularly of interest to everyone here. We discussed what are the compass points, and we had some priorities on that, of which were the worst. I think the top prize went to the entrance from the west, with Marlborough College. One boy presses the traffic light, and we all queue back to the way past Manton, that sort of thing. So perhaps that should be looked at. The way we think that is connected to our next priority for action, which is the parking, one involves the other. We wonder whether we should be looking at something like lorries being restricted as when they can deliver in the high street. We wonder whether we could have park and ride, so we've got cars out of the high street. It's also pointed out that if we have a lot of cars in the high street, it's not actually very becoming for a tourist town to be cluttered up with cars. So all these things are interconnected, and I think both groups felt that it does need a look. It really does need an integrated look from everyone's point of view. The 8,000 that live here and the 8,000 that are trying to get into it, or through it. Finally, we covered all the points, but I can't go on. Finally, we considered the speeding in villages issue, which, by the way, should be separated from the HGV issue, which is a different bullet point. But speeding in villages, slightly happier news, because we feel that the Community Speed Watch and the Ben Hamilton Bailey Initiative should mean that that issue is being looked at. So let's keep looking at it, and the Marlborough Area Board have just given the go-ahead for the Ben Hamilton Bailey Initiative. There are a lot of other points, but those are the main ones. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There was a really interesting discussion on the community safety table. We were very fortunate to have had representatives from both the fire brigade and the police department, from quite senior level actually, as well as parishes, community centres and so on, and children's centres. So it was really quite an interesting discussion at all levels. What was quite interesting was there was a brief discussion on both sessions about some of the issues, but what I'd like to focus on, because we're all going to be very familiar with what those issues are, it's going to be to do with road safety, it's going to be to do with perceptions of crime, it's going to be to do with perceptions of safety across the community area. But in fact, what I found most exciting was the suggestions which have come out, and that's what I'm going to spend most of my 2 minutes talking about. At the first, there was a connection between both groups, and it's a double connection. The first one is about education and educating people in the community area further and more deeply about community safety, and I'll pick up that theme again in a moment. But secondly, it was about collaboration and joined up thinking between different services. And that was one of the things I found most stimulating as a facilitator, to watch people from the children's centre, watch people from the fire service and the police talking about trying to achieve a common goal. And I think that was actually one of the most stimulating things. I'm just going to pick up 2 suggestions. Under the theme of road safety, of which speeding dominated, I'm sure the transport group's going to talk about this more, but there was very strongly a perception from a safety perspective that an accident will happen before the problem gets solved in our villages. Some discussion ensued about whether that perception was real or not, and I think that we're all agreed that actually, regardless of whether it is or isn't, it's an area that needs to be addressed. So as an interesting suggestion came out, 2 things. The first one about physical obstructions. Physical obstructions in villages and the effect that they can actually have in terms of local action, because each place with a speeding or a traffic issue is going to be different than the one next door, and local obstructions, actually physical obstructions, acting to modify driving behaviour. The second thing that came out of that was a collaboration between the police and the fire service and traffic calming working groups in a particular village. The thought that once people had been reported, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but reported by traffic calming working groups in villages, the second time, or the third time, they then have to attend a compulsory viewing of the Safe Drive to Stay Alive shock performance from the fire service. And I thought that was an interesting collaboration idea where 2 services were working together to achieve a common end. The second group's theme, suggestion of improving things also was about collaboration and using service provision that already exists in some places, such as fire stations. Fire stations which lay there ready to spring into action, but of course these are made up mostly of very much of local people and might serve to provide a further service provision. For example, the suggestion came from the children's centre that getting into the villages is really difficult, and to access people who actually need advice and help and guidance. So perhaps a coffee morning held at a fire station, attended by other service providers to provide advice and guidance and help with something that I understand that the fire service is meeting up with the children's centre actually after this meeting to talk about this concept even further. I think that is really exciting. Okay, community safety. Thank you very much.